I mean, like, I feel like real celebrities, they go out and they get recognized all the time. I get recognized like at VR shows, and like I said, it's when we're in our bubble, it's so easy to be like, wow, you're a celebrity. It's like, yeah, at a virtual reality conference. But in everyday life, you know, it's not like I'm getting frozen yogurt and people are recognizing me. I've actually gotten recognized one time in public it's happened a lot at like game conventions and anime conventions and, you know, places like that. But in just normal public daily life, only one person has recognized me. It was in Irvine. It was on Christmas night, and I was really hungry, so my girlfriend and I went to the McDonald's near us, which is they have breakfast after midnight. So we went and we got breakfast after midnight at McDonald's. And there was a guy. He was from a university in Mexico, and he was driving back from Hollywood down to San Diego and then on to Mexico the next day. And he was also in the McDonald's, him and his guys, and he came over. He says, "Are you Palmer Luckey?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it was really cool. Oh yeah, I signed a thing for him, and we chatted for a while, and it was super cool. He had a cool Chewbacca hoodie, so that was I kind of wanted one then. So, but that's the only time I've ever been recognized in public. So I guess the point of that anecdote is hasn't really changed all that much. You know, we're still at the beginning. Before all of this, I was always, you know, working as hard as I could in my garage to make virtual reality happen. And it's kind of weird because first it was just me working on VR stuff. Then the company, you know, started, and we were a small company, but we were doing a lot of things. You know, we're selling a product. So I was actually doing a lot of things. Everyone had to do everything. There was customer support, traveling around, booking flights, business, developer relations, tax stuff, custom stuff, just so much to deal with. And so my responsibilities went from like this little narrow thing to all of a sudden all these responsibilities. But as we've grown bigger and we've been able to hire more people, it's actually come back to where I'm able to work more on core VR stuff, and that's been really, really great. Everyone at Oculus works like a maniac. We're all in late at night, early in the morning, most weekends. It's because, you know, we want to be doing that. So, you know, there's a difference between comfortable and what you feel you need to do. I don't think if you asked anyone at Oculus, do you have a comfortable workload? They say, it's a comfortable workload. They'd say, no, it's hell. This is crazy. You know, we're putting in so many hours, but it's worth it because this is so much fun. And I mean, there are people who I'm not saying everyone works like they're like a bat driven out of hell, but I think most of us are. It's one of those daydreams. It was never part of a master plan. I never thought it was actually going to take off like it's taken off this fast. I thought someday, you know, virtual reality is such a transformative technology, if it can be perfected, that there's no reason to expect it wouldn't take off. It isn't like, you know, an app idea or a website idea or even most hardware ideas or, you know, like a food preparation idea, which I have some food prep inventions. VR is so obviously going to be important. You can watch every movie about it, every book about it, and anyone is going to see at least one thing that they can relate to that excites them. And it was always just a matter of time. I just never imagined it would happen this fast. You know, maybe this isn't the time. Maybe it all is going to crash and burn. But the last time around, you didn't have nearly if you looked at it objectively, I don't think anyone outside of the VR industry would have predicted that it was going to take off shortly. I mean, like, look at the things we have today. We have very high resolution screens, great motion trackers, all of it's very cheap, and everyone has computers that can render amazing graphics. Back then, you could barely render, you know, simple wireframe stuff, and then towards the end of the 80s, you're getting to where very high-end workstations can barely render real-time, high frame rate, you know, bad graphics. I think all the pieces are finally there to make this thing happen, and here's the key difference. Back in the 80s, the people who were most excited about virtual reality were the ones who had not tried it. They were the ones who imagined what it would be. They knew it was coming, but they didn't know where it actually was. People who had tried it, you know, some people were still excited, but the average person realized we are a long way from where I want it to be. That's the opposite of today. Now, the people who try it, they're the ones that are most excited. And that's why you have so many people quitting their jobs, becoming VR indie developers, starting VR startups. You didn't have that going on to nearly the same degree back then because it wasn't something that instantly transformed people's perspective like it is today. Another comparison would be 3D TVs, where people thought 3D TVs were going to take off. But I don't think the average person actually thought that in anything more than an abstract sense. 3D TVs were pushed by content developers, like movie makers, movie studios, and technology companies. They were the ones pushing 3D, saying, we're going to put 3D in all our TVs, and we're going to make all our movies in 3D, and we're going to sell it to people, and they're going to love it, and it's going to be this big thing. But you didn't have this big push of people demanding, saying, I demand my movies are in 3D. 3D is the future of all my movies. Even there were people who thought that, but they were very small in number. Most people were like, it's a fad, or yeah, it's cool. I mean, I guess I'd rather have it than not. But nobody was saying this is going to transform everything. Someone has to build what makes this possible. It was a business-driven technology, not a user-driven technology. And VR is the opposite. People are trying it and saying, I really want to play VR games. I am so psyched about this. This is the future of gaming. And this time, really, the big technology companies are behind the curve. Now, they're behind what people want. And there's not many technologies where that happens. It's a little unfair to say that I'm driving it. There are so many people that are driving this thing, not just at Oculus, but at these other companies, but especially at Oculus. I mean, we're over 100 people. There's so many people that are driving this. And I've got to say, I was driving this more a couple years ago than you could say I'm driving it now. Because back then I was one of only a couple people who are really trying to keep the stream alive. Now you have thousands of people all trying to keep this dream alive. So it's flattering that people, they're like, you're driving this, you're making it happen. But the reality is that there are too many people working on this now to say that it's me. I would feel differently if I actually felt like I was driving it. Like, I don't know if I guess there are people who feel like that, right? Where they're like, oh man, I'm just changing the world. I'm a brilliant visionary, philanthropist extraordinaire, and I'm just so great. But that's not how I feel. I feel like I'm doing my part in something that needs to be done. This could be the height of my popularity. Like I said, I was probably more important 2 years ago to VR than I am today as an individual. 10 years from now, I would hope that VR is such a big industry that there's new stars being created, that the person putting their hands in the pavement isn't me, it's someone who's made a groundbreaking virtual reality movie, or someone who has made an incredible, mind-blowing, piece of content. That's when VR is going to be, recognized as really successful, not hero worshiping a single person.